So finally, after many revisions, about 3 different shell designs and a few setbacks, the Microcade prototype that we've actually built for my wife is now complete. It needs a little bit of tidying around the edges. For example, the T-moulding isn't on quite as good as it should be. There's a bit of fraying and things like that where we've had to loosen parts and do a lot of experimentation. But the thing is now cosmetically, mechanically and electronically complete. You can see a better close-up now of the side artwork, which is done very much like Dan Cassell's Slimline Master, using the original Space Invaders side artwork. We've condensed it down immensely for the marquee area, which of course is only thin. We didn't want to increase the height too much just for the marquee, so condensed that down to about 1 inch. And then we've got matching bezel and control panel artwork. Looking at the features down, you should just be able to see there we've got the Invader, classic Invader shape, cut out like a sprite, as ventilation, and the speaker is also mounted behind there. It's very quiet because it's just the onboard speaker for the system we've used, but in a machine like this you don't want it to be noisy. It's the type of thing you can play on the side while everybody else is enjoying watching TV or whatever. And as you can see, we've got the same around this side. We've got a U360 joystick. I've always wanted to experiment with these. I've used a couple in the past, but I wanted to experiment with them, so I've put them on this cabinet so I can have a bit of a mess around. We've got some budget convex buttons. One of the few available in the shade of pink I wanted, but the good buttons, very soft to the touch, feel quite good, especially on games that like to use leaf springs, as I would have done back in the arcades. And then on the front there we've got a convex play on start button. Above that we've got the credit button. For this machine we're using the exact same Turnarcades software we do on our full machines. That was the whole goal of this. We could have gone a lot smaller if we'd used a mobile device, or if we'd used a Pico ITX or similar PC system if you wanted full operability like this. But the idea was to get it as small as possible on the smallest possible budget. So in there we've basically got a PC motherboard that's a little bigger than mini ITX form factor. It's got a 1 GHz Intel C7 processor with NVIDIA onboard graphics and sound. So no need for any kind of additions to run the games you really want to play. Had to remove some of the platforms that obviously won't run on the system this low. It performs about as well as our old P3 800 MHz systems, even though it's a 1 GHz. Probably because it's got slightly different overheads because of the type of PC it is, and there's not so much focus on graphics and sound. But it plays perfectly well. I'm just going to take you through a couple of games to show you. Right, so start off with, we've got WrestleFest, one of my favourites. As you can see, goes through the load sequence just as it should from the front end, and then when it calls up we use this little button here to add a few credits. You can probably not hear the sound because it is that quiet. And then start a game and go to Royal Rumble. Hulk Hogan will do. So this U360 doesn't use springs, it uses optical sensors. Works like an analog stick or a digital stick. Feels nice and quiet, no clicking. But I've put a restrictor plate, custom restrictor plate in there to make it feel solid in the diagonals, which I know some people say they have trouble with on a U360. You see there the buttons are nice and quiet. It's only the resistance of the buttons causing that, no sticky springs. If I just do a close up on the screen, you'll see there's no drop in frame rate, no graphical flaws. That's playing just great at the monitor's native resolution. And And what I've done is we've assigned shortcuts to some of these buttons because we haven't got the admin buttons, just as we do on our bar top machines. So you hold player on start and press coin, and it's like pressing escape on the keyboard, takes you out. There's a couple more shortcuts such as pause and that, but I ain't going to show you that, it's pointless. But if I just go to a couple of other platforms, you'll see runs those just as well. We've got Mario World there. Let's quickly fire up a game. And you can see it there, quite easily managing Super Mario World. Classic for obvious reasons. Go to a couple of other platforms. All the platforms we've got installed on here do work really well. So we've got Mega Drive, runs perfect, NES, Master System, Game Boy, Game Gear. Now with Game Gear, rather than condense it down in the middle of the screen like we do on the full machines, because the grainy colour graphics don't blow up too well, I've actually activated the Game Gear zoom switch, so we have got full screen on this, and on a screen this size there's no kind of distortion or like effect on the graphics because the screen's not too big. Neo Geo Pocket, for those who like something a bit different. Metal Slug on Neo Geo Pocket, fantastic game, runs pretty well on this machine. And lastly, PC Engine, or TurboGrafx 16 if you prefer. But there it is. That's the first micro arcade prototype. The amount of demand we've had for these has been very big. A lot of people have commented on how perfect they seem, in some ways better than a bar top. We may toy around with the dimensions slightly to drop the control panel height because we can get away with that just about. But if you're sat at a table with the correct height chair, playing it comfortably is no problem, and you soon find a nice comfortable way to sit with it. I've been playing it for about an hour and it plays just fine. I'm hoping to have these on for retail soon. There won't be much in the way of options because it's so condensed and because there's so many limitations with regards to space. It's going to be difficult to add anything of worth to it, or a lot of things will just become a major pain to do. So what you see here is pretty much what you get. There'll be a slight change to the software setup, and it wouldn't have the U360 installed. We'll be using something slightly different. But we want to be able to bring these out at a decent price, and this will then be our cheapest machine. And rather than just being a casual experiment as we've done this time, we found it to be quite a practical machine, so it will retail and be our cheapest machine. We'll be looking to bring it out at a shade under £300 or around the £300 mark with a full artwork package. Hope you enjoy it. Please leave any comments.